Part 51. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 504. At this time, the surrounding grasslands were densely covered with large numbers of black knights. The sky was also densely populated with large groups of two-headed lizard dragons. A small group of white knights were surrounded, right on the edge of the bottomless hollow. Garen and Garen were suddenly on the other side of the cave, next to a huge stone pillar, and they were also surrounded. Among the Black Knights, Gulayman led the team, followed by the Cold Man in Black and another black armored knight. He looked into the bottomless hole. "Where's the secret treasure? I've searched everywhere, but there's nothing there. I guess those two people took it away, and now it's probably because of the secret treasure," the man in black said calmly with a cold voice. "Here comes the gun." Gula stretched out his hand, and the knight next to him respectfully handed over a black spear. He grabbed the spear. He passed one hand over the gun body, and countless dense black runes suddenly appeared on the gun body. "Hand over the secret treasure, submit to me, and become my slave, otherwise, die." Gulayman's voice spread far away in the direction of the black stone pillar. The edge of a deep hole. A group of white knights gathered together. Their white armors were covered with scarlet blood spots, and some of them could no longer see the original white background. Some of the weapons in the hands are broken, some have curled blades, there are no injured, and the injured are all dead. Injury means that the light of the totem is broken. The light of the totem is broken. Without the protection of the totem, it is just a sword in a chaotic battle. That's all. Or even a little bit of light splashed by their companions can kill them. No one made a sound. Some of the white knights were breathing heavily, some were wiping the blood that flowed into their eyes, some were stroking the horses that were almost unable to support themselves, and some were reciting something in a low voice that no one could hear clearly. The leader of the White Knight held Princess Leu in his arms and held a 4-meter-long silver double-edged sword in one hand. The sword was covered with coagulated blood, and there was fresh blood dripping from the blood along the tip of the sword. The white horse under him was covered in full-body armor like white jade, but it was also in tatters at this time, with scars of varying depths all over the horse's body. This mutated white horse has reached its limit. One of its eyes was blinded, leaving only a bloody hole, but it still stood firmly on the spot, motionless, carrying two people on its back. "Uncle Bai Kong, can we still survive?" Leu asked in a hoarse voice as he curled up in the arms of the leader of the White Knights with a blank face. "I don't know," the leader of the White Knights replied calmly. He looked far away in the direction of the black stone pillar. "The two people over there look very bad." Black stone pillar edge. "Aren't you very clear about my conditions?" The voice of the Black Knight from outside came in, mixed with the roar of the lizard dragon and the neighing of the mutated horses. But neither of them paid attention. "It's impossible to hand over the Sun Seal magic wheel to you," the evil God King's voice turned cold. "Except for this condition, any other conditions can be agreed to." "It's a pity that I really only have this condition." A mysterious smile suddenly appeared on Garen's face. In an instant, his figure slowly faded and disappeared. After image. The evil God King suddenly raised his hand and shot out a red light, landing a few meters to his left. Without even looking at the result, he kicked off his feet, raised his elbows, and hit the empty space. Bang! A black shadow was knocked out by the elbow. But the black shadow did not stop at all. Instead, it used the force to fly up and pounce on the large group of black knights in the distance. "Don't even think about it," a possibility flashed in the evil God King's mind, and he was startled. He rushed over to block the black shadow, and red light shot out one after another, from his hands, feet, mouth, and eyes. This kind of light of destruction is the result of gasification. But at this time, due to the high degree of condensation, it did not splash around. The emitted red light dispersed into countless red light spots, and flew back to the evil God King again as the next source of energy. Red light and black shadows collided crazily, stirring in the sky hundreds of times per second. The collisions were so loud that the rest could only hear the buzzing of bees. Get out, the evil God King tried his best to hold Garen back in his busy schedule. Melee combat was not his strong point. At this time, he had no choice but to roar at the Black Knights. The two flew into the sky. Some two-headed lizards that couldn't dodge were directly brushed aside, exploded instantly, and then turned into black pus and scattered. Hey hey! Garen chuckled, and his right arm suddenly melted into countless black liquids, which condensed into a huge black dragon head more than 10 meters long and 5 to 6 meters wide in the blink of an eye. Roar! Puff! As soon as the dragon's head formed, it was instantly pierced by red light, and had no choice but to quickly revert to Galleon's right arm. In the sky, the black shadow tried to pounce down again and again, but was repeatedly intercepted and blocked by the red light. There are more and more Black Knights gathering below, and there are more and more two-headed lizard dragons in the sky. Thousands of totem lights rippled, surrounding the two of them. Gula Man's face became increasingly gloomy. He raised his black gun. You actually dare to challenge the majesty of the Prairie Iker Alliance? Kill them, the Black Knight beside him suddenly roared. Kill! Kill! Long live the Azer Alliance! The Black Knights and the horned warriors on the backs of the flying dragons roared. Suddenly, countless two-headed lizards rushed towards the sky towards the two of them. They waved weapons that stirred the light of the totem. Some released arrows of black light in their hands, and some sprinkled green powder. Translucent plants like green vines suddenly appeared floating in the air around them. In an instant, dozens of two-headed lizards swooped over and surrounded the two of them, fighting each other. From a distance, they looked like a dark red ball. They brought it to their mouths themselves. You can't blame me, Garen's laughter suddenly sounded in the sky. Bang of all laws! The evil God King's voice stopped abruptly. A red shadow shot out from the red ball, then crashed into the ground with a roar, raising a large amount of smoke and dust. Immediately afterwards, countless black smoke suddenly burst out from the inside of the red ball surrounded by flying dragons. The black smoke was like a living thing, forming a giant lizard head, more than 30 meters long, reflecting a huge shadow on the ground. The dragon's mouth opened greedily, and with a tear, the mouth was split from the corners of the mouth to the ears, as if half of the head was completely torn apart. Then what is that? Gulaman unknowingly let go of the spear in his hand and fell to the ground. He raised his head and stared blankly at the terrifying black smoke faucet in the sky. The huge coercion silently covered everyone present. Thousands of totem masters, lizard dragons, couldn't move at all. Scarlet blood-like plasma slowly seeped out of the originally dark green grass, wrapping the forehooves of each war horse. Like him, everyone, Black Knights and White Knights, all looked up at the sky. The shadow of the huge dragon head blocked the light in the sky, opening its huge mouth like a natural disaster. Poof! The sky suddenly became quiet. More than 200 two-headed lizard dragons were swallowed half in one gulp at this moment. The surrounding red ball completely disappeared, completely clean. Not even a single person or mount was left. At the gap at the edge of the dragon's mouth, there were still people struggling to arch out half of their bodies, but they were immediately pulled in again by the huge suction force, and not even a scream was left. I won, evil God King, a voice boomed from the sky. Weird. Monster. Like a drop of water falling into boiling oil, the entire Black Knight team collapsed. Monster. Ah. Kill him. Kill. Long live the Alliance. Someone shouted, as if this could vent the fear in their hearts. More people turned around and ran away, lowering their heads and fleeing in all directions. No one dared to raise their head. There were also people with red eyes who were madly riding up on the flying dragon. After a few mouthfuls, they were swallowed cleanly into the dragon's mouth without leaving any traces. After all the attacks rushed into the black smoke, they instantly melted and became part of the black smoke. Holy Master will not let you go." Gulayman's voice trembled. His feet were already tightly entangled with the plasma-like liquid. An extremely strong tremor surged out from the deepest part of his heart, making him unable to stop. He didn't even have the strength to move. He and the two leaders behind him were all stuck to something like plasma, unable to move, as if their bodies were not their own at all. A black energy enveloped them, like a rope, tying up the three of them and tossing them gently. The black smoky faucet opened its huge mouth and swallowed it like a snack without even chewing. On the ground and in the sky, countless plasma and black smoke stretched out, catching the Black Knights who had no time to escape and sending them into the dragon's mouth. On the other hand, the leader of the White Knights actually emitted a circle of white light and hid in the dark cave. When others were not paying attention, they opened a depression in the cave wall to hide. Averted from this massacre without resistance. "It's over, evil God King. I've almost figured out your sun seal magic." Will Garen's voice came down from the sky. In the deep pit on the ground, the bloody figure slowly stood up with an ugly expression. His mask had been destroyed in a certain battle, revealing a pale and handsome young face. At this time, two blood-red round wheels were spinning in his pupils, and there were actually hands in them, like a time clock, with the left side faster and the right side slower. "If these idiots hadn't suddenly rushed over to provide you with food, do you think you had won me?" The evil God King gritted his teeth. When both of them are about to run out of energy, suddenly one of them gets the fat meat delivered to their lips. This is simply cheating. "Stupid loser," Garen's voice sounded again. "If you can't beat him, you can't beat him. Any reason is just an excuse." The evil God King was so angry that he wanted to vomit blood. If he didn't want to die once, or if a group of idiots didn't suddenly come out to replenish his strength. Even Philos didn't dare to humiliate him like this. During the conversation between the two, the Black Knights on the ground and the lizard dragons in the air had been almost wiped out. They were either dead or running away. Four purple figures also unknowingly appeared on the grass at the edge of the battlefield, looking over here from a distance. Astonishingly, they were the four demon phoenix people. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 505. The black wind swirled on the ground like black threads in the air. Wisps and wisps were blown across the ground. Some of the dark green grass was uncovered, leaving only black soil, and some of the blood and stumps were scattered on the ground. There were also remaining Black Knights and horses crawling and twisting on the ground in pain. "Don't force me." The circles in the evil God King's eyes turned faster and faster, and a thick red light filled the air around him. The inside of his body seemed to be about to burst, with cracks and scars like magma appearing. "The earth is shaking." With the evil God King as the center, a huge bloody human mask slowly emerged. The eyes on the human face are empty, the lips are slightly open, and the expression is indifferent. The huge human face is exactly opposite the terrifying black smoke faucet in the sky, and is more than 40 meters long. The four Mohuang people on one side were watching the movement here from a distance. Mohuang's mouth was open in an O shape, and his face was dull. Even the original Osaga was not so exaggerated, the purple-armored female phantom on the side said with a trembling voice. "This scene has completely exceeded the limit of what human beings can achieve. It has risen to another species level." Several people felt the black air of poisonous mist blowing in the wind, and couldn't help but retreat tens of meters again before barely standing still. Hiding in the shadow of the black stone pillar, the four of them dared to take a closer look at the situation. The Black Knight and the Flying Dragon are almost dead. In the hollow of the clouds, on the left side of the huge golden light pillar projected, the black dragon head and the bloody human face faced each other, but compared to the size of the golden light pillar, it was slightly smaller. Black gas and red light flowed and intertwined within a few hundred meters of surroundings, but the red light clearly gave people a feeling of powerlessness. "Are you willing to give up your current body?" Black Dragon Head said calmly in the sky. His voice seemed to be carrying a subtle dragon roar. giving people a sense of majestic and fearful pressure. The evil god king stood below, looking at the dragon head with cold eyes. After a long time, the magma-like scars on his body slowly dimmed and disappeared. The huge bloody human mask also slowly dissipated. This time, you win. Tell me what conditions you want. Open your secret arsenal to me. Garen put forward the conditions he had already thought of without hesitation. The origin of the evil god can be exchanged for shining water, but the secret weapon, especially the secret weapon information of this world, is extremely valuable. This time, he could simply rely on the 9-headed dragon's devouring and regenerating ability, his 9-life talent, and his potential points to defeat the evil god king. But the gap between my Wu is really too big. If there were no potential points to replenish, a totem master would have been killed by the evil god king several times, without any resistance. Part of this world comes from ruins, and part is created by humans themselves. As a top powerhouse with a 1,000-year heritage, the evil god king definitely has an extraordinary collection of secret weapons. And they are definitely the most powerful level. Secret arsenal. The evil god king did not expect that the other party would make this request. He was so annoyed by Garen. He has been beaten and beaten to death, and he can't run away. He has been grinding it out until now. He has gone from being contemptuous at the beginning to facing him seriously now, and truly regards the other party as his opponent on the same level. What makes him strange is that although the 9-headed dragon's talent has terrifying regenerative power and the ability to die as a substitute for the dragon's head, it is not exaggerated to this extent. According to the logical model of the research workshop masters, the power can reach the level of 9 lives at most, and Garen killed more than 9 times along the way. He decided that he must carefully study and find out the root ability of 9-headed dragon when he goes back in the future. It was really a big loss to fight this way. The secret martial art is only the one that suits you best. It's useless for you to learn other secret martial arts. Are you sure this is the only condition? He became confused and stared at Garen closely as if to see what he was thinking. This is my condition. Garen didn't want to offend the other party to death. After all, the evil god sect and the Black Sky Society only cooperated temporarily. After the Ghost sect was born, the evil god king was also the first force that the Black Sky Society wanted to eliminate. The secret weapon is the key core for us to enter the 5th type. If you change it now, I'm afraid it's too late. The evil god king guessed that he might be trying to change the secret weapon because it was too low level. But at this point, everything they do revolves around my Wu. The fusion of totems and the absorption and evolution of the body are all based on my Wu. Replacement is now impossible. Unless the other party wants to completely abolish everything and rebuild it. It doesn't matter, I just want to refer to it. Garen didn't care. Okay, now that there is a disparity in strength, the evil god king has no choice but to admit defeat. Call. The black smoke dissipated, and the black dragon head slowly collapsed, turning into black clouds that concentrated toward the center and condensed into a strong human form in an instant. The humanoid has extremely eye-catching blonde hair, and is covered in a close-fitting black dress made of black smoke, which slowly floats down. Stamped on the ground. Garen looked around, and finally his eyes returned to the evil god king. The other party sat down, crossed his legs, and the wheels in his eyes slowly slowed down, faded, and disappeared. Garen simply sat down as well, and the two of them sat facing each other more than 10 meters apart. For a while, they had a tacit understanding and didn't speak. Don't worry, as the leader of a religion, anything I say will never come true. The evil god king condensed a red light curtain with one hand, and used his finger as a pen to quickly write something on it. When we reach the level of you and me, secret martial arts no longer have much meaning. No matter how good the secret martial arts or totem is, it is just a good starting point, and we are already standing at the relative end point. In a matter of seconds, he wrote a simpler secret martial art of several thousand words. As a once talented totem master, his hand speed was naturally also the best. 3 tremors per second equaled 3 words. Emerge, describe, and write at a speed far beyond that of ordinary people. With a flick of his finger, the red light curtain was like a piece of paper, spinning and flying towards Garin. Snapped. Garin caught the light curtain with one hand and glanced at it. He clearly remembered all the contents above, and his brain quickly analyzed and judged the credibility of the contents, as well as some basic flaws. Based on his experience in secret martial arts and the large amount of secret martial arts knowledge he had learned in his previous life, he could easily tell that this secret martial arts article was not a fake. But the other party is also a master of secret martial arts. After all, after so many years of accumulation, no matter how stupid a person is, he can become a master, not to mention that the evil God King himself is very talented. So it is very easy to fake the secret. At this level, Garin no longer trusts his past life experience too much. None of these top masters are top geniuses who have lived for many years. He knew his own business. If it weren't for his innate abilities, he wouldn't be able to compete with these top geniuses. Originally, he was just an ordinary person with a little ability. This secret martial art called Mountain Giant Will is obviously the original version in the ruins. It has 3 levels. The power described in the highest level is obviously the same as the peak of Type 5. This is obviously the top secret weapon in the section. Many of these places gave Galen a lot of inspiration. The secret martial arts are divided into the ancient Yinduo secret martial arts and the modern secret martial arts. The evil God King said in a low voice, "This article is one of the secret martial arts that I referred to when I originally created the Sun Seal magic wheel. I leave it to you first." Garin nodded, memorized the secret weapon, and crushed the red light curtain with one hand. When the evil God King saw this, a trace of hesitation flashed in his eyes, but he continued, "I wonder if you have ever heard of the division of secret martial arts. Please tell me." Garin glanced at the demon phoenix and the others not far away. The demon phoenix poked its head out from behind the stone pillar and looked this way from a distance, not daring to get close at all. The evil God King's voice suddenly became low and high-pitched, and only a trace of sound reached Garin's ears directly. It was just a small trick obtained by using the fusion power of the 5 types of secret weapons. In the world of secret martial arts, Galleon knows this move, and the sound becomes a line. We divide secret martial arts into 2 categories, life and death. Life and death. Garin was immediately surprised. Can Maiwa distinguish between life and death? Of course. The evil God King nodded. The secret martial arts we practice is called the secret martial arts of death. This death does not refer to the death of life, but to the nature of the secret martial arts. He paused and continued. Death means no change, no movement, no change. This kind of secret martial arts is a framework. Those who are suitable for this framework can practice to a very high level, while those who are not suitable for it, no matter how talented they are, can't. There is no way to achieve anything great. It sets a direction and cannot be changed. So, the secret martial arts of life is. Yes, the secret martial arts of life is extremely tolerant and adaptable. It is just a foundation, but this foundation is alive. It can have multiple directions and is suitable for various physical practices and different people. After practice, as the cultivation level deepens, the secret martial arts will gradually change and become a more suitable type for the practitioner. The evil God King talked eloquently. So, such a secret weapon can grow and be alive. This is the superior existence of the most powerful secret weapon. Garin's expression changed slightly. Even in the world of secret martial arts, he had never heard of such a secret martial arts existence. Sure enough, the higher the level of power, the different the realm of contact. What do you mean by telling me this? Among the 4 ruins I discovered, one is likely to contain the existence of the secret weapon of life. There are 3 of them, and I sensed that one of them is of the cold type. Although it is not the most suitable for your water type power, This way this opportunity is not to be missed. Are you interested? The secret martial arts of life. Garen closed his eyes and muttered. The other party definitely has intentions, but such an opportunity is indeed difficult to refuse. Why are you looking for me? With the strength of your evil sect, can't you get it? Some forces in Zizhu are involved, but I'm not sure. The evil god king narrowed his eyes slightly and said in a low voice. The secret martial arts of life is not suitable for everyone to practice. It just has a few more directions than the secret martial arts of death, and there are more ways to reach a similar peak. But if your physique is completely unsuitable, there is nothing you can do. You have to think clearly. If you miss it this time, you won't know how many years you will have to wait if you want to meet the one that suits you in the future. Garen fell silent. The existence that can allow the evil god king to find helpers is definitely a strong opponent at their level. Originally, in this critical period of the birth of the Ghost Gate, there should not be extraneous matters. He also found time to have someone bring a message to Eagle King Goth and Teacher Aining, asking them to enter Absolute Asylum when something bad happens. However, with Goth's personality, I guess bringing it was in vain. In this period, the temptation of living secret martial arts is indeed very strong. The biggest characteristic of the secret martial arts of life is its inclusiveness and growth. Only when you meet the right one can you integrate your own secret martial arts to form a totem power seed. Furthermore, we speculate that perhaps only the power seed is our only an opportunity to go further. The evil god king spoke again. Back then, the Black Sky School's ghost sect obtained a secret martial art of life that was suitable for him, so he practiced hard in seclusion. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 506. Ghost Gate. Garen's heart was shocked. The evil god king probably doesn't know about the news of Ghost Gate's birth yet, but the birth of Ghost Gate represents the success of his practice. Obviously the totems gather together to form the seeds of power, and by borrowing the growth potential of the secret weapon of life to go further, this path is very likely to work. Who is your opponent? Garen closed his eyes and calmed down. The number one force in the Western continent, the Lord of the Heavenly Palace, Rosman Holy Wind. The evil god king looked solemn. He also has another title, the King of Beasts. He ranks first among the masters of the lair. Not human. Certainly. The evil god king suddenly laughed. Speaking of which, this grassland and the hundreds of southern countries are all occupied by his two men. Next, Garen and the evil god king asked and answered each other, and time passed by. Half an hour later, a red light rose into the sky on the battlefield, turned around and flew away into the distance. On the ground on the grassland, Garen and Mohuang watched the evil god king leave from a distance. The two made an appointment at a time and place, and confirmed the arrangements for going to the ruins. Master of the Celestial Palace, this title is obviously modeled after human organizations, but it can make the evil god king find another helper. Obviously, the master of the strongest nest in the first place is not ordinary powerful. Mai Wu will naturally have people from the evil god cult send people to his hands. It seems that for the evil god king, no matter how many secret weapons of death there are, they are far less important than the secret weapons of life. Not to mention him, even after Garen heard about the existence of this secret weapon, his demand for the secret weapon of death was much smaller, and he didn't value it too much. As compensation, the evil god king also gave him some secrets about the soul. The evil god king's soul was severely damaged by Pharaohs, the king of Sunia. Over the years, he has been studying recovery methods, and his understanding of the soul is far better than Garen. From the evil god king's mouth, Garen learned that the existence of the evil god was actually the physical manifestation of a powerful soul. Their souls are immortal, and they are immortal. At most, they just change their bodies to live and consume some of the evil god's origin. Therefore, they are immortal unless their lifespan reaches the limit. This lifespan actually refers to the limit of the soul. And the evil god's origin he obtained is actually a special substance that has the effect of enhancing the soul. Only the origin of the evil god can restore the cracks in the soul every time the evil god dies, and at the same time serve as the body material for their rebirth. Before taking the opportunity to hunt down Shen Yun, Garen hid the evil god's origin in advance, fearing that it would be destroyed in the battle. So now those origins are not in my hands. Have to go back and take it out. The 4 Demon Phoenix people also became extremely honest after seeing the battle with Garen evil god king. Compared with the last battle, this time the 2 of them were still so strong after so many days of fighting. Of course, the most important thing is that during these times, Garen's reckless eating style made several people panic. I just swallowed countless black knights in one go, and now several people were following Garen. They felt their hair stand on end just by getting closer, fearing that he would swallow them up as snacks on a whim. What should we do now? Demon Phoenix asked Garen cautiously. It's time to go back. Garen glanced at her. This guy is considered a low-level type 5 person. However, due to being sealed, he should be able to improve. But judging from her physique, energy, and blood structure, she should be at the intermediate level of type 5. The top is not so easy to reach. From ancient times to the present, how many masters have truly reached the top? If Demon Phoenix reaches its peak, it will not stay in a corner of a small country. Go back. Where? Garen didn't reply, too lazy to pay attention to her. Mohuang and the others were also psychologically affected by his beating, so they quickly shut up and stopped talking, for fear of irritating him and treating him as trivial matters. Just now, Garen's unscrupulous demeanor scared them to death. This time, Jia Long did not take action himself, but asked Mo Huang and others to take action. Soon a purple lion with purple wings on its back appeared in front of a few people. The lion's back was very flat and wide, and the 5 or 6 meters of space was enough for Galen and several people to ride on it. Mentally exhausted these days, Garen simply lay halfly on Demon Phoenix's knees and thighs to rest his mind. Next to him, Phantom carefully peeled some of the white fruits he had collected earlier and brought them to Garen's mouth one by one. Of the other 2 brothers, one transformed into a mount, and the other held up a purple light film to protect Garen from the wind and double as a sunshade. Several people were about to take off into the air. Suddenly Garen pointed with one hand at the dark void on the side. Laugh. A black line shot out, and the ground of the black hole suddenly shattered into a large piece of soil, leaving a gaping hole. A girl's scream could be heard faintly underground. Soon, a white light ball of more than 10 meters slowly floated up from the deep hole and landed on the ground beside it. The light curtain spread out, revealing more than 30 white knights who had escaped earlier. Each one of them was covered in dried blood, but each of them was silent and solemn, with a firm look at death in their eyes. There were also several white horses covered in blood being led around him. The leader of the white knights held a little girl with tears and runny nose in one hand, staring at Garen with wary eyes. Who are you? Garen glanced at the white knights. We are survivors of the White Wind tribe, powerful totem masters. The leader of the white knight bowed his head and replied respectfully. It seemed that the other party had no intention of killing him as a snack as soon as they met. White Wind tribe, Garen had never heard of it. He only cared about existences at the 5th level. Below the 5th level, one would release totems to fight against the enemy. Above the 5th level, one would compare the strength of the secret weapon. The pinnacle is the existence that has cultivated the secret martial arts to the highest level. Whether it is the evil god king, he, or pharaohs, they have all stood at the pinnacle of totem and secret martial arts. For the rest, a large number can be easily killed simply by relying on the suppression of strength. His eyes moved around the white knight and the others. Suddenly, Garen's eyes settled on the little girl held by the White Knight. Then he looked at the sky in the distance and laughed twice. The leader of the White Knight also turned his head to look along his line of sight, but saw nothing. But his expression immediately changed and he thought of a possibility. Puff! He fell violently to his knees. Please take away Her Royal Highness Princess Leu. Even when he was asking for help, his voice sounded sonorous and powerful, without hesitation or reluctance, as if it was just a quiet afternoon when a subordinate was reporting something to his boss. Uncle, the little girl's face was dirty and her appearance could not be clearly seen. She hugged one of the knight leader's arms and hesitated for a moment. She also knelt down on the ground. Plop! In just a moment, all the other white knights were kneeling on the ground. Demon Phoenix spouted on one side. As soon as we leave, the two forces over there will probably be unable to wait any longer. If you don't accept them, they will definitely be dead. To be honest, I have always been very tolerant towards young guys with good qualifications anyway. He was about to face off against the Celestial Palace. Garen was also interested. These people from the White Wind tribe should have been defeated by the Black Knights of the Celestial Palace. He had a big grudge against them, and the White Knight leader and the little girl had pretty good qualifications. Especially the White Knight leader. Garen made the decision mainly because of him. This guy's qualifications can only be considered excellent, but his perseverance and will are not ordinary. He can insist on protecting his master under such harsh conditions. Such loyalty is the most valuable. Such a talent plus the White Knights around him, there are actually more than 30 people. These people are all people who are extremely difficult to rebel once they are loyal and can sacrifice everything for their loyalty. Now is the time for Kurosawa Palace to employ people, and such talents should be naturally used by him. Garen was indeed moved. The most important thing in Blackwater true skill itself is willpower, followed by aptitude. Take them away, he pondered for a moment and finally spoke. The leader of the White Knight's heart skipped a beat, and he finally breathed a sigh of relief. The little girl beside her was also full of joy. Get up, I promise to take you away. The phantom took out a purple and black bead from his body, tossed it gently, and the bead fell to the ground and quickly transformed into a large group of purple one-horned wolves. These giant wolves were crawling on the ground, showing extreme respect and submission to Demon Phoenix and the others. Take them with you, Phantom ordered calmly. The giant wolves straightened up one after another. Each of them was more than 4 meters tall, and they were all huge monsters. Most of the knights were relieved. No one wanted to die in vain if they could survive. Now it was obvious that the strong men in front of them agreed to protect them, and everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Get up and ride on the giant wolf, Phantom ordered. The leader of the White Knights remained motionless, as if he hadn't heard anything at all. Only then did Phantom realize that this guy had fainted. Giant wolves carried White Knights on their backs and lined up to form a small square formation. Garen and others sat on the back of the lion, slowly flew up, and flew towards the distance, with the wolves galloping below to keep up. Soon after the group left, 2 golden figures suddenly appeared above the black hole. Astonishingly, they were 2 human figures shrouded in golden robes and cloaks. People were taken away by them, the tall man said in a low voice. That man has discovered us. According to the intelligence, he should be one of the 4 giants of Kuwaitan, Hydra Gallon. A slightly shorter humanoid voice came out from a high-pitched male voice. Why don't you take action? According to human classification, you should be at the upper level of Type 5. I'm no match for them. The tall man shook his head. Human beings have powerful secret weapons that can unleash their potential. We don't have it, so we can only rely on the original foundation to move forward. They relied on the secret weapons to fuse a brand new power. This kind of power is not ours. We can deal with it. If we can still deal with Type 5 at the general level, then after the qualitative change at the top of Type 5, we are no match. Where are the 3-tailed dragon and the others? Same, the tall man explained, Only we, the masters of the lair, have the term Type 5 superiors. Humans only have the peak of Type 5. We superiors are between their peak and intermediate levels. We are stronger than the intermediate level, but weaker than the peak level. So this time the Palace Master came here specifically to collect various secret weapons. Is that right? You guessed it right. The Palace Master has already obtained the secret martial arts of 2 disciples. Maybe with a little more, he can integrate and understand. Maybe he can create a secret martial arts that the master of our lair can also practice. The tall man nodded. The Ennet language spoken by the 2 of them was extremely standard, even compared to the locals. It was obvious that they had worked hard. If we succeed, the master of our lair will no longer be the only one who can fight against the top human masters. This world will be dominated by us, the tall man said in a deep voice. We must let mankind know that we are not useless except for our numbers. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 507. On the vast yellow Loess plain, a group of fish-shaped white wolves moved slowly and orderly, carrying white knights covered in white armor on their backs. There are 50 or 60 of these giant wolves, each one is huge and has a single horn on its forehead. Flying above the heads of the wolves was a black and purple lion with 2 wings on its back. On the lion's back, Garen sat cross-legged, playing with the evil god's origin crystal ball that had just been taken out from the ground. The 3 origins in the ball rotate slowly, forming a small ring, the god of time, the god of war, and the god of light. Among the 3 origins, the light gods is the intermediate origin, and the other 2 are lower-level origins. Black poisonous smoke was slightly emitting from Garen's body, and traces of poisonous mist drifted dozens of kilometers along the wind, so that no living creature dared to block their progress along the way. The entire team suffered no casualties. He turned sideways and looked at the wolves below. After 3 days of traveling and resting, the white knights on the wolves' backs had recovered a little bit of their mental strength. As early as the first day they were taken away from the grassland, these white knights, led by their leader, declared their allegiance to Garen and joined the Kurosawa Palace lineage. The name of the leader of the white knights is Bai Kong, and he is the adopted son of the leader of the White Wind tribe. He is 23 years old, and his strength level is that of a totem master. He is considered a very talented person. Not to mention on the grassland, he is in the middle domain. All countries also have first-class genius elites. There is naturally a reason why Bai Kong can stand out from many adopted sons. He has a talent that is very special. The talent was named doubling by himself. Bai Kong originally thought that after hearing about this talent, the adult would definitely train him and take him more seriously, but he didn't expect that Garen just nodded lightly and that was it. He didn't know that for a top player like Garen, no matter how talented he was, it was just a good starting point, and he was already at the end. No matter how strong the talent potential is, it will not attract his special attention without the time of growth. Garen still has a lot of things to deal with. After understanding the Sun Seal magic wheel, although this technique was not suitable for him to practice, his original purpose was just to learn it secretly and use it to operate and absorb the origin of the evil god. Bai Kong's talent is doubled, and his ability is to double the effect of the released spell or totem ability in a short period of time, at the cost of half the physical energy. This ability is very terrifying. It becomes more powerful in the later stages, and the stronger the totem is cultivated, the more powerful the effect will be after doubling it. The most important thing is that this effect can break through the body defense of totem masters of the same level. This is why Bai Kong is so valued. If he grows to the Type 4 and Type 5 stage and the doubling effect is released, his ability will be terrifying. But it is a pity that although a genius has strong talents and abilities, he requires more resources to grow, and it is more difficult to break through the shackles. He has been stuck in the aura stage for 3 years, and he is still standing still until now. Sitting on the back of the 2-winged lion, Garen carefully studied the 3 evil god origins in his hands, black, white, and red. Each of the three origins emitted a unique shimmer. The seal shined on Garen's face, making it look a little mysterious. The sound of the black lion's wings vibrating in the wind kept coming to his ears, and the lion's back appeared as stable as possible. Garen concentrated on staring at the mass of black origin. The mass was completely black, with dots of silver sand in the middle, like a thick black liquid. Garen gently opened the lid above the crystal ball, stretched out two fingers, and gently inserted them into the black source. Laugh. His body shook slightly, and a red circle suddenly appeared around him, slowly rotating. The round wheel was covered with countless tentacles like the tentacles of living creatures. They opened their teeth and claws, taking on the shape of translucent shadows. These tentacles twisted around, extended, and soon penetrated the crystal ball and accurately penetrated into the origin of the black silver sand. Gilug. Gilug. A sound of swallowing came from the tentacles. Dozens of tentacles absorbed the essence at once and transferred it to the red round wheel, as if drinking water. In an instant, four black and silver-rimmed beams of light suddenly shot out from the inside of the round wheel, accurately illuminating the surroundings of Garen's body, forming a complete cross shape. The cross-black light lasted for more than 10 minutes, leaving the demon phoenix and others beside them at a loss. If Garen hadn't ordered them in advance, they would have jumped off the lion and hid on the ground. The coercion of this blood-colored round wheel was so strong that the demon phoenix, as a Type 5, was actually suppressed and breathless. More than 10 minutes later, the black light of the cross slowly dimmed and dissipated, and the blood-colored wheel also crashed, shattering into countless fragments like glass, splashing and disappearing. Garen opened his eyes, and a hint of unexpected joy appeared on his face. The evil god's origin actually has such effects. He was filled with unexpected surprises. It turns out that he collected the evil god's origin in order to reach the peak of Type 5, but now that he has reached this level, he doesn't pay too much attention to it. He just absorbs it with the mentality of giving it a try. Unexpectedly, after being absorbed by the operation of the Sun Seal magic wheel, the origin of the god of time actually gave him an unexpected surprise. His eyes moved to the light red attribute bar at the bottom of his field of vision. The attribute talent, which has been silent for a long time, now has a change reminder again. A black and red eye-catching symbol appeared silently in front of the attribute bar on the far left after absorbing the origin of the time god. This is a dynamic symbol that is constantly rotating, similar to the back-to-back combination of 2K letters. As before, Garen knew the meaning of the symbol just by glancing at it. Successfully absorbed the strengthening material, and the soul strength is being increased to the limit. Turning his eyes, Garen looked at his attribute bar. Power 14, Agility 10, Physique 10, Intelligence 10. It's still the same as before, but behind all the attribute numbers, a subtle plus sign appears. The plus sign flashes, obviously it's in progress. Since entering the fifth type, the increase in one's own attributes has become weaker and weaker among totem masters. The strengthening of the body's own physique, even if it is superimposed with the increase of the troll's grip, is not too outstanding in the eyes of totem masters of the same level. Due to the problem of totem potential, the advantages of increased Galleon attribute are all offset by other totem masters, and they are even at a disadvantage. Because the enhanced attributes of one's own body cannot offset the totem advantages of Type 5 masters at all, let alone their more powerful secret martial arts. The attributes of the main body have gradually become insignificant, and have no effect at all against the terrifyingly lethal Type 5 totem master. Just like for a cannon, whether a person is strong or thin, the result of a shot is the same, which made Garen want to find a way to break through. But there is no way. Such powerful attributes were obtained by transplanting the heart of a two-headed lizard dragon. If he had the original physique of an ordinary person, his physical limit would not be able to reach the 10th level. But now the absorption of the evil god's origin has allowed him to see the light of day again. Thinking of the explanation mentioned by the evil God King before he left, Garen felt happy, but also had a vague guess. Could it be that the original function of the evil god is to allow people to break through bottlenecks and limits? It turns out that the leader of the Black Sky Society in history also used the origin of the evil god to break through the limit. The effect of the time god's origin lasted for more than half an hour. The flashing plus sign behind the attribute bar slowly disappeared, and the attributes did not change at all. But Garen faintly felt that his body seemed to have room for further improvement. The black and red symbol in front of the attribute bar also stopped rotating and changed slightly. Garen quickly deciphered its meaning. The permanent soul limit is increased, and the attribute limit is increased. The upper limit of the soul has been increased. He decisively overturned his previous conjecture in his mind. Recalling the evil God King's explanation about the soul again, he had a more accurate guess in his mind. Could it be that the limit of my attribute improvement is closely related to the upper limit of the strength of my soul? Just as this thought flashed through my mind, a new symbol suddenly appeared under the attribute bar. Garen looked at it curiously, and with a snap, the symbol suddenly unfolded and turned into a light red light curtain that filled his entire field of vision. It was densely packed with records of every time he strengthened his attributes. Increasing attributes and strengthening. Increasing attributes and strengthening. Increasing attributes and strengthening. Absorb external potential points. Absorb external potential points. Lines of historical records were clearly sorted out. Garen's heart moved. If the limits of attributes are closely related to the strengthening of the soul, then when I transplanted the dragon heart and broke through the physical limits, is it also related to the soul? Thinking of the ancient memories of the nine-headed dragon that happened one after another in the basement and hot spring area after the dragon heart was transplanted, Garen felt a faint clarity in his heart. He traced back upwards vigorously, and the records kept flowing upwards, like a red waterfall flowing backwards. After flicking for dozens of minutes, a clear line of records appeared in front of Garen's eyes again. The transplantation of the heterogeneous heart is successful, the soul's will is integrated, the soul has no resistance to rejection, and the continuous enhancement limit begins. Continuously enhance the upper limit. Continuously enhance the upper limit. Line by line enhancements are clearly documented. Garen finally understood the principle of increasing his attributes. The upper limit of the body, the upper limit of attribute improvement that can be increased by using potential points, is actually related to the strength of the soul. Seeing this, he felt a little scared. If the two-headed lizard dragon had not had any will to resist and had always been loyal to him, plus he was lucky and had strong willpower, he might have suffered a serious failure. At the beginning, I didn't even know that there was a soul improvement column. I just thought that as long as the strength of the body's organs increased, the upper limit could be increased. But he didn't expect that the essence of organ tissue and the will of countless bioelectricity, the soul, would be the most critical influence. According to the experience of absorbing the origin of the evil god and the explanation of the evil god king, the soul should be a special energy field that is born in the body until it is completely complete and perfect, and finally forms a relatively independent force field. The body is like a big factory. In addition to providing the energy needed for the body's survival, it also produces a large amount of bioelectric energy, which is intertwined to form an extremely complex energy field. This field in turn controls and affects the behavior of the living thing itself. It receives signal feedback from the body's needs, as well as countless influences from various external fields. Garen combined the theory of the evil god king with his own personal experience and theoretical knowledge of physics on Earth to initially obtain a barely satisfactory explanation. The soul is regarded as the most mysterious realm no matter where it is in the world. Similar to the evil god king, the soul is so powerful that it can temporarily leave the body and reach perfection, so it can be immortal. Born in the body, but transcending the body. The essence of evil gods is probably a body composed of energy fields. Compared with biological bodies, they just replace the body's cell materials from blood, flesh, and minerals with different energy factors. After clarifying this system, Garen once again began to absorb the origins of the remaining two groups of evil gods. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 508. The second group is the origin of the god of light that he chose. It took more than an hour to absorb it, and the plus sign flashed for more than 2 hours. The third group's god of war origin had no effect. After absorbing Galleon, I felt that my body had no reaction. The blood symbol no longer rotated, and the plus sign did not appear. His instinctive feeling was that the effect of something like the origin of the evil god on him could only go so far. The means that can increase the upper limit of the soul must be very rare. He transplanted a dragon heart, and now he is trying to clear out the will of the ancient nine-headed dragon, and it is not known whether there are any other residues hidden in the dragon heart. Because of his lack of understanding of the soul level, Garen had no idea whether he had completely eliminated any future troubles and could only resort to tricks. After absorbing all three groups of origins in succession, Garen watched the last flashing plus sign slowly disappear, and then glanced at the potential points in his hand. Power 14, Agility 10, Physique 10, Intelligence 10, Potential 16,744%. Possess the qualification of Silver Lantern Technician. 167 potential points, but he had hunted all the monsters in the past few days, plus the points obtained from killing a large number of Black Knights that day. The previous accumulation had long been used up in the fierce battle with the evil God King. Let's see how much we can increase it to. The higher the attribute points are, the greater the consumption will be. At the beginning, 1 point of potential can increase the attribute by 0.1. Starting from 5 points, each level requires 20 potential points. After 8 points, 1 point of improvement requires 60 potential points. It's already after 10 o'clock now. If we want to improve again. Garen glanced at all the attributes. Although his instinct told him that the attributes could be improved, he was still a little uneasy. This is not only a matter of a little increase in attributes, but also related to the verification of whether his own conjecture is true. His eyes finally stopped at his physique. Now his strength and speed are not bad in all aspects. Kyuzuryu himself is also good at strength, but the key is resistance. His skin defense is too poor. The evil God King's red light attack wiped away a large piece of flesh and blood. In the fierce battle with him, if the potential points could not replenish the 9 life talent, Garen would have been directly killed without leaving any residue. Physique is related to defense and resistance, which has been proven in the world of secret martial arts. It's just that although the attribute points are only 10, after being strengthened by the secret weapon, the nature of the body has evolved to another level, and the potential points required are somewhat unknown. Garen fixed his gaze on the physical fitness item and stayed there for more than 3 seconds. Soon, swoosh. With a soft sound, the number at the potential point was neatly reduced by 100 points. In terms of physical fitness, the physical fitness, which was originally 10, finally slowly but surely improved a bit, reaching 11. Garen also felt that there was still room for improvement in his body. A small improvement in his physique only caused a sudden warm current to circulate in his body. The warm current was quickly absorbed and disappeared by the visceral muscles. Everything returned to its original state. Garen only felt a little fuller all over his body. There is a bulging sensation and no other sensations. 100 points of potential can be used to improve one attribute. Garen's heart was a little blocked. In this way, even if he was crazy about massacring the totems and monster lair owners, it would be difficult to improve to the level that he could resist the 5th type. It can be completed in 2 years. The main reason is that there are not so many masters to kill for him, and the monster groups are endless. But who knows how many potential points will be converted into additional attribute points after the attributes are improved. Maybe in the future it will become 200 points for one attribute, 300 points, or even 1000 points. According to Garen's expectation, in order for physical fitness to reach a level comparable to the peak of Type 5, it needs to reach at least around 30 points. If it increases a few times in the meantime, it might actually become an exaggerated data ratio. And all this must be done without limiting the upper limit. What a pity, Garen breathed out slowly. The question of the origin of the evil god comes to an end. Originally, he planned to go back to Kurosawa Palace directly now. The Ghost Gate was born, and there were dangers outside. It was better to enter the Absolute Asylum to recuperate. Consider how to deal with Ghost Gates. But this invitation from the evil God King made him very excited. From a principal point of view, Shenji's secret weapon was more powerful than any other secret weapon he had ever come into contact with. This kind of secret weapon can only be created by gods and demons in mythology. The secret martial arts that can grow and evolve with practitioners was simply a fantasy for Garen in the past. If you can get a secret weapon of life that suits you, this will be fatal to Garen's temptation. The evil God King said that he has been able to confirm that there are 3 secret weapons of life in a ruins he has mastered, one of which is the fluctuation of cold power. Although it is not very suitable for Garen, this thing is rare and can be encountered. Everything I have used is very good, so there is no room for pickiness. Garen thought that the water type and poison type were the most suitable for him. The cold type was not very suitable for him, but it was rare to be born with a secret weapon. He planned to go back to Kurosawa Palace first, repair himself, and then go directly to the agreed place and the evil God King gathers. There is also the Master of the Heavenly God Palace, who ranks first among the Nest Masters. Instead of confronting the Council of Elders underground, he actually comes to the ground to snatch the relic resources. But until now, the experts from the Council of Elders have not appeared, and there is no movement. This made Garen feel bad. Although the evil God King didn't say anything, a sense of urgency could be vaguely detected from his words. What makes him so anxious? Historically, after the Ghost Sect was born, there was no movement from the Council of Elders. Could it be that Garen suddenly thought of his original guess? Has the Council of Elders been completely destroyed underground? Why is the Lord of the Heavenly God Palace so eager to find the secret weapon of life? Why can the evil God King still endure the grudges of fighting all the way and invite himself to fight for the secret weapon? With the arrogance of the evil God sect, he can actually endure this bad breath and be willing to pay for it. They bow to some conditions and are unwilling to really turn against each other and fight to the death. Garen was vaguely convinced of that terrible guess. It is very likely that the Ghost Gate has been released a long time ago and went underground to deal with the Council of Elders. By the way, it also caused heavy losses to the nest owners and suffered heavy losses, which led to the current situation. Moreover, the 2 lair masters who suddenly came to Dongzhou some time ago quickly gathered all the monsters they could manage, and they only occupied a small area of the 100 kingdoms in the south. Judging from this abnormal behavior, it is very likely that the Ghost Gate will be there at that time. They have already taken action underground, otherwise the lair owners would not be able to gather monsters for no reason. The more Garen thought about it, the more likely it was. From this point of view, how powerful the Ghost Gate was, made him more and more excited. No fear, even if he couldn't beat him, Garen was still very confident in his ability to survive. What's more, the essence of a warrior is to constantly challenge one peak after another. He also needs to find the secret of his journey into this world, and figure out the mysterious source of his supernatural talents. Maybe I will try to pursue the deepest dream in my heart in the future. He cannot and will never die in this world. In the next few days, he sat cross-legged on the back of the lion, listening to the news on the radio, and correcting the direction of the 2-winged lion, flying straight in the direction of the absolute protection of Khautan. The news kept coming from the radio. The king of Enet finally made wild plans to challenge the strongest totem master in the world. He used the 3 strongest giant stone statues in the country and half of the treasury wealth as rewards to convene a world conference of totem kings. The location is in his newly built Eternal Night Palace. The final winner, as long as he can finally defeat him, will get all the reward wealth and the 3 strongest giant stone statues. Even if you can't get the first place, you will be selected to rank among the top 100 in the world and receive different levels of rewards. When Garen heard the news on the radio, he could guess it without even looking. Countless totem masters around the world who heard the news would rush to the capital of Ennet. After the Great Turmoil, it is now the period of the Great Population Depression. After the master of the monster lair gathered a large number of high-level monsters, the environment has become relatively peaceful. The forces in the area are busy recuperating and accumulating resources. And such a prosperous event, as long as you win, you can get a huge amount of resources for your own development, which is absolutely impossible to miss. Even if you can't get the first place, at least the top 100 is still very promising. It is estimated that 90% of totem masters will think so. Garen knew this was a trap a long time ago and ignored him. He first greeted the core totem masters of Kurosawa Palace. If someone still disobeyed and rushed to die, it would be none of his business. Just in time. Simplify and purify the increasingly complex Kurosawa Palace. In addition to the Totem King Conference, news about various university sects also continued to spread. After the Black Sky Society unified many of the strongest schools, the Earth Flower Society fought to the death and retreated, hiding in the dark and not daring to come forward. The other large schools have surrendered to the Black Sky Society and become minions of the Black Sky Society, regaining primary and secondary schools everywhere. Among the primary and secondary schools, the De Sula school was under the control of teacher Enning, so they received the news in advance and evacuated to the Absolute Asylum, with Garen's arrangement. With the help of manpower, more than half of the members of the Dar Sula school were able to safely avoid the storm. By the time Galen was about to arrive at the Absolute Asylum border of Kuwaitan, all academic organizations in the entire East Continent except for a few secluded schools had been wiped out by the Black Sky Society. The entire continent's schools were unified, forming an unprecedented behemoth. Ghostgate seems to be very tolerant towards Daiwa Club. After the Sislays died in the war, for some unknown reason, he promised to give Daiwa Club 100 years of stability. After flying into Absolute Sanctuary, Garen was one of the 4 giants, and his aura fluctuations were recognized by Absolute Sanctuary. He opened an entrance and easily let the people he brought into the sanctuary area. As we get closer and closer to the royal capital of Kuwaitan, the ground gradually becomes somewhat uneven. The earth slowly arches, and hills slowly appear one after another. The hills are getting bigger and higher, and soon they turn into a mountain. An earthy yellow mountain peak. There are more and more mountain peaks, and they are continuous. The color gradually changes from earthy yellow to yellow and black, and then to gray and black, and then to pitch black. Finally, the black royal capital at the top of the mountain range slowly emerged among the mountains. Looking from a distance, the huge dark city looks like a relic left over from ancient times. Compared with when Garen left, the royal capital was obviously much more prosperous. Dense black and white dots rose and fell in the sky above the royal capital. The entire royal capital was divided into 3 parts of the mountain peaks, and the highways on the mountains could be seen from a distance. There are endless ox carts, horse-drawn carriages, and convoys of strange creatures. The foothills below the royal capital are also covered with farms, villages, and a large number of windmills, water wheels, and farmland. The green wheat fields rustle slightly with the wind, and the figures of farmers can be faintly seen in them, giving people a sense of peace and tranquility. I don't know how many times better it is than the cruel and bloody outside world. A large number of villages are like plagues of different colors, located at the foot of the mountains around the royal capital. With the royal capital as the center, towns and villages are being built on many surrounding peaks. Terraced fields have been opened up on many mountainsides. After a while, the entire royal capital has completely changed. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 509. Garin directly let the Black Lion fly towards the foot of the royal capital mountain, and the wolf cavalry team slowly followed behind. The giant wolf group is one of the several monster tribes that Demon Phoenix and others recovered during the sealing period. The leader is a golden-haired giant wolf. He has been fighting with the Moonscars for thousands of years and is considered an old rival. Standing on the back of the Black Lion, Garin looked down. From time to time, civilians and people in the motorcade looked up on the ground, their faces full of admiration and envy. Some didn't notice it and still kept their heads down and did their own thing. The farmer was still working in the fields, and the herb gatherer was climbing up and down the mountain with a basket on his back. From time to time, several flying creatures carrying people on their backs flew below him, some flying from the royal capital to the outside, and some flying from the outside to the royal capital. When they were still a few hundred meters away from the royal capital, a large group of black-robed figures had gathered at the foot of the winding mountain road, looking towards Garan from a distance. The surrounding environment has also been temporarily affected, and people who want to go up the mountain have temporarily closed the road. A group of people had gathered outside the fence team and seemed to be watching the excitement. Among the group of black-robed men waiting at the foot of the mountain, 2 were leading the team, and most of the others were young people. There were also a small number of black armored guards around, and the faces under the helmets could not be seen clearly. As soon as they saw the huge figure of the Black Lion slowly descending, the leader of the group immediately raised his hand. With a sneer, a white blanket was released and flew out, precisely placed under the 4 legs of the blackened lion. The hundreds of meters long white carpet is extremely eye-catching in mid-air, not to mention the huge and eye-catching black lion. More and more people gathered around to watch the excitement, and there were also people hovering in the air to watch what was going on here. Long time no see, Elder Blizzard Garin could tell the identity of the 2 people leading the team at a glance. One was Blizzard and the other was Wu Guang. But Wu Guang wore a veil on his face, covering half of his face. The face under the veil was slightly bruised and swollen. "Palace Master, you have finally returned to the palace," Blizzard laughed and greeted him. Bang! The Black Lion stepped heavily on the white carpet and fell to the ground. The disciples in black around them all bent down to salute and shouted in unison. "Congratulations to the Palace Master." The sound was deafening and powerful. Hundreds of people shouted at the same time and lined up to welcome them. This momentum immediately caused the surrounding onlookers to whisper. In just a moment, hundreds of people were surrounded at the Panchen intersection, many of which were merchants entering and leaving the royal capital for transactions and deliveries. There are also convoys of nobles entering and exiting, personnel from other forces, etc., but the majority are ordinary civilians. Most of them were farmers who went to the royal capital market in the morning to sell raw materials, meat, and vegetables, as well as ox carts transporting necessities. There are 4 entrances and exits in the royal capital, and this is only one of them, but the flow of people is also extremely alarming. In less than 10 minutes, hundreds of people have accumulated and stopped, and it seems that there will be more people surging later. Compared to the hundreds of thousands of people who flow in and out of the royal capital every day, the gathering of hundreds of people is like a small wave in the ocean. After the black-robed crowd greeted Garin and others, they quickly led a group of wolves onto the road. All pedestrians gave way voluntarily. During this period, there were 2 civilians who rushed up and tried to complain, but they were stopped by the black armored guards outside. The appearance and departure of this team was just a little bit of turmoil in the huge flow of people in the capital. The spies of the other three giants were also in the crowd and quickly conveyed the news of Garen's return to other senior officials in the entire royal capital. The population of the royal capital grew more and more, and the turmoil in the outside world once caused a large number of civilians to flock to the absolute sanctuary. Blizzard and Wu Guang accompanied Garen back to the palace area, then said goodbye and left to arrange the rest of the affairs. Lala, who had been waiting at the palace gate for a long time, took over to handle the welcoming matters. Ephesus, who had been in seclusion, also welcomed him out. Following him were a group of senior palace elders, including the three elders Tianu, Konkin, and Ammonian, followed by a large group of core students in the palace. The three great master disciples recruited by Garen were also there, as well as a young man in white alongside them. Behind these four people were the black armored guards of the four directions, and then a large number of other students and disciples, as well as the team from the technique hall. A mighty team of hundreds of people surrounded Garen and returned to the Kurosawa Hall in the palace area. Sitting on the main seat of the Black Hall, Garen glanced at the 2 rows of elders around him. There are all the elders in the 2 rows, sitting on both sides. Behind them are their own disciples and disciples. The next seats are the 4 core disciples and the generals of the 4 directions. There are no seats behind them, but the next ones standing in 2 rows. Waiting for disciples. These are arranged in order, not in random order. Everyone's clothes are dark in color, but the logos they wear are different. They all use the white and silver hydra as their emblem. Those who can come up to the hall must have at least 5 dragon heads. The elders are all 8 dragon heads, and only Garen is at the 9 dragon head level. Garen sat in a high position, with Demon Phoenix and 3 of his subordinates standing behind him. This was a position he had personally arranged. He had almost completely cast a psychological shadow on Mo Huang and the others. He was the only one in the entire palace who could subdue them, and he was a relatively independent third force. In addition to the 2 forces led by Ephesus and Blizzard, he also has a more convenient third party to act as a check and balance. During my trip to Shanya, did anything unusual happen in the palace? Garen glanced at the whole place. He had already entered the 5th type. At this time, he was far from being as majestic as before, and he was completely like an ordinary person. Calm and indifferent, and can't see the tyranny of being in a high position. The elders of the 7 Knights Pagoda exchanged vague glances without saying a word. These days, they have tasted the sweetness. With the help of Kurosawa Palace's growing power, if they want something, they only need to give an order, and countless powers will extend out to help them find it. It is more convenient than doing it themselves before. Half a point. Although you must fulfill your obligations while enjoying your rights, those obligations are just too easily shock outsiders when needed, and the time and energy spent is simply not worth mentioning. Especially the luminous goddess, who now plays songs almost every night. She has purchased a large garden manor in the capital, where she keeps more than 10 beautiful dogs and dozens of beautiful young slaves. She hangs out with other high-level female family members of the capital all day long. Happy to miss you, partying every night. Blizzard often went to exchange experiences with the masters from Grand Duke White Knock. Recently, they also recruited several Master Totem Masters there. In addition, White Knock originally had top Totem Masters under him, so he was rarely able to enjoy himself. But he doesn't stay at Kurosawa Palace very often. Ammonian Jiat is addicted to communicating with the technical staff workshop master of the Technology Palace. He has an extraordinary interest in biological transformation. He did not have the time and energy before. Now that he has joined Kurosawa Palace, he lacks everything. You will have plenty of free time to study your own interests and hobbies. Several disciples who also enthusiastically advocated transformation were selected from among the many students as assistants. Ephesus is still in the fusion totem. He is sitting in the position with his eyes closed and concentrating. He still holds the white sword in his arms, but his aura is getting closer and closer to the fusion power of Type 5. Feel. Garen could tell at a glance that the White Rose Sword Master would be able to break through the fifth form as long as he passed this fusion threshold. It's just that totem masters with different thresholds have different times. There are several reasons why he passed it so quickly. First, the potential of Kyuzuryu is insufficient, so promotion and integration will be much easier. The second is that his own realm has risen to a higher level by chance, reaching a level similar to Pharaoh's. He named it the Dragon Mirror level himself, taking half each of the 9-headed dragon and the mirror. After being promoted, the flash barrier was no longer very useful. When he was fighting against the evil God King, he opened the flash barrier, but it only lasted for a moment before it was smashed by the violent red light. If he hadn't recovered it quickly, he would probably not be able to use it now. The secret treasure has been completely destroyed. Although this thing seems to have no upper limit, it is still only at the intermediate level of Type 5. When I first got it, it felt very suitable for protecting the fusion period, but now that it has passed, it is not very useful. The other three parties in the Grand Council have all made big moves. I wonder if our Kurosawa Palace is also involved. Kong Qin glanced at the rest of the people. No one said anything, so he took the lead in speaking. Big move, Garen smiled. Now that he has broken through the fifth type, he has stood at the pinnacle of the entire East continent. They no longer care too much about the actions of the other three giants. Ignore them, let's do our thing. How many people are there in total in the palace now? Except for the escorts, there are a total of 2,315 people in Kurosawa Palace. This is the latest statistical verification personnel. About 2,000 of them are students. Most of them are the remaining batches of students recruited after the palace owner left. In addition, the latest student qualifying rankings are. Lara reported quietly behind Garen. Garen nodded slowly as he listened, roughly gaining a new understanding of the developments in the palace during his absence in the past few months. The royal capital's policies have achieved many results, including developing agricultural industry, encouraging childbirth, treating civilians well, and increasing commercial exchanges. A large number of hunting teams have been established throughout the royal capital to hunt edible mutated creatures for meat. Some people are also studying the domestication of mutated creatures as livestock. Without the wars and monster destruction, the development of the royal capital seems to be prosperous. A few days ago, the eldest princess attracted some powerful folk totem masters and exiled noble totem masters to establish an organization called the Pearl Party. The party's mission is to build a world where men and women are equal and truly have no boundaries. It attracted many female totem masters and workshop masters to join. The fourth prince responded decisively and established the Xingguo Society. Taking the prosperity of Kuwaitan as his own mission, he attracted a large number of free totem masters to join. The confrontation between the two sides was in full swing, and they each launched activities to compete. Hunting powerful mutant beasts, collecting rare plant ores, holding simulated war exercises and other activities. The third-party guild alliance is going back and forth between the two parties to earn benefits between the two crown princes who both want to control the positive inheritance rights of Kuwaitan. They were competing fiercely over there. Apart from a little commotion at the Kurosawa Palace, and the arrest of the poisonous woman, there was no big move. They were either recuperating or training students and disciples every day. The entire Kurosawa Palace maintains its operation through the profits from the large number of stores under its auction house. Their main source of goods is the production of the Technique Palace and the harvest of the students' outings for trials. So, the system I want has been successfully created, Garen asked in a deep voice. Yes, Master Kilian, the person in charge of the technology hall, replied, I named it the Nine-Snake System. It has accurately completed the previous requirements made by the Palace Master. It has been tested many times and there is no problem at all. Now it has been partial trial run. 9 snakes? Not bad. The palace encourages students and disciples to go out for trials. In addition, we can hire external forces. If the elders in the palace have any needs, they can also publish tasks on the system and provide rewards themselves. This platform, the system, can be used as a tool to communicate resources and optimally allocate resources. Galen nodded. After roughly understanding the recent developments, Garen immediately moved his attention to the students and disciples. Last time in qualifying, the top 3 came out. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 510. Suddenly, the atmosphere in the hall seemed to have changed subtly. All the elders showed interest. Even Ephesus, who had been closing his eyes, opened his eyes at this time and looked at the 3 disciples who came out. 2 of them were the 2 masters that Jia Long had previously recruited as his disciples, while the other was a little guy who was only 15 or 16 years old. The respect of this little guy was different from that of the other 2. Although he was equally respectful, he tried to raise his head and look directly into Garen's eyes. Although such persistence made him tremble all over, and he was sweating in just 10 seconds. But he still gritted his teeth and persisted. "Who is on Sparrow?" Galen asked calmly, but his eyes were already fixed on this little guy whose face was getting paler. "He's the guy who refuses to give in." Wu Guan couldn't help but laugh at the elders' table. It immediately caused a burst of good-natured laughter in the hall. "I heard that you sat quietly under my statue and threatened to surpass me." Garen did not smile at all. His tone immediately affected the atmosphere of the entire hall, and the laughter of other elders suddenly fell silent. The pale-faced boy still held his head up stubbornly. His short brown hair was wet with sweat and stuck to his forehead. The clothes on his body were slightly stained by sweat, but he had no intention of lowering his head. "Yes," he gritted his teeth and tried to squeeze out 2 words. Under the pressure of Garen's gaze, although the other party did not mean to pressure him at all, he was born with an extremely keen sense of danger and crisis. This is a talent. This talent allowed him to travel thousands of miles and escape death countless times, and finally arrived in Khautan and worshipped at the Blackpool Palace. But at this moment, this talent has become his biggest burden. This sense of crisis makes him tremble all over at this moment, as if his body and mind are about to collapse, as if he is underwater and wants to float up due to lack of oxygen. But there were water plants and whirlpools pulling at his feet. This overwhelming feeling of suffocation almost made him bow his head and surrender. "Wow!" The young man seemed to hear the sound of the tide receding. The pressure around him suddenly decreased, his whole body shook slightly, and he almost fell to the ground. The senior brother beside him secretly helped him, and then he regained his balance. Apparently Garen discovered the reason for his trembling, and took the initiative to further collect the aura and fluctuations on his body, which allowed the little guy to return to normal. "Okay, great." Everyone could clearly see the smile on Garen's face at this time. There was no concealment of his admiration for this little guy in his eyes. For the 4th level of Blackwater True Skill, you need to exchange mission merits. I, Kurosawa Palace, will not teach it to you in vain. The first 3 levels are the most basic benefits for disciples, but after enjoying the rights, you will naturally have to fulfill your obligations. Obligations. On the 4th level, you need to complete certain tasks in exchange for merit points to obtain them, and private information is not allowed. Is that okay? Of course, the boy replied loudly, taking a deep breath. Everything you receive must be paid accordingly. You want to tell us this truth? Go down and rest. Garen waved his hand, and a maid immediately stepped forward to support the young man and take him down. Garen's attitude caused a change in the attitude of the entire Kurosawa Palace hierarchy to a certain extent. Most of the elders still had good intentions, except for the goddess from the 7 Knights Tower who looked unhappy but did not say anything. It was probably because the little guy had offended her at some point. Pass her. Garen ignored her. The palace was not monolithic. There would be some undercurrents between each other, but he ignored it. As long as it did not exceed a certain limit, everything could be regarded as a setback and exercise for the palace staff. Next, Sifang Tianzhang, who is responsible for all aspects of affairs, stepped forward and reported the relevant situations. Although these situations had been compiled and handed over to Lala for sorting, now they are reported in detail, with certain details added. The Sifang Tianzhang is a top combat genius directly selected from the outside. He has passed the test of qualifications and endurance. In just over 2 months after Garin left, 2 of these 4 positions were challenged by challengers, thus replacing them. Pick the candidate. Challengers are people from the Genius Training Camp. The Genius Training Camp is the elites who stand out from a large number of ordinary students. These elites are then used as candidates for the 4 generals and core student disciples. The entire Kurosawa Palace has initially established a complete system. The entire Kurosawa Palace is divided into 5 levels. The first level is the Palace Lord. The second level is the 3 forces of the elders, the General Manager Lala, and the Technical Hall. The 3 forces are equal. The third level is the core students, generals from all directions, teachers and totem masters of genius training camps, external industry managers, etc. The fourth level is for gifted students. The fifth level is at the bottom and is ordinary students. They are only 1 level higher than ordinary guards, maids, and palace business staff. Among these 5 levels, only at the 4th level, the genius students of Kurosawa Palace are already inextricably linked with the outside world. The top-ranked students have become the future targets of investment by outside forces. There are more or less forces of different sizes gathered behind these students. The power of the entire Kurosawa Palace is like a huge spider web, covering the entire royal capital, and is rapidly spreading towards the entire sanctuary area. This has formed a large interest group with Kurosawa Palace as the core, and the top one is Garin. The 4 heavenly generals stepped forward to report on the mission status in all aspects. The Black Armored Guards had been renamed from the original Black Fire Heavy Guards to the current Kurosawa Guards. These Kurosawa Guards were more brazen than before. The 4 heavenly generals worked together to strengthen the power of the forces above and below is completely comparable to 4 totem masters at the peak of Type 4. Although this is adding various means and regardless of the sacrifice effect, it can be seen from this that the terrifying ability of the Green Vine Ball can make ordinary people to become such a top player. The Green Vine Ball is indeed the greatest achievement of Vindman's life. Garin listened carefully from above. The Sifang Tianzhang was responsible for external force negotiations. There were 200 of them. Together with the totem masters recruited from the outside, the total had increased to nearly 800. They were the largest force in the entire Kurosawa Palace. These people are also responsible for maintaining the industrial security of Kurosawa Palace, going out to hunt and collect various materials for mutated monsters, patrolling the perimeter, teaching offenders a lesson, performing troublesome tasks, etc. They can be regarded as the cornerstone of the entire Kurosawa Palace. This power is what Garin feels most at ease with, because the Green Vine Ball only recognizes him. All the power of these Kurosawa guards comes from the Green Vine Ball, so this is also the biggest wealth Vindman left to him. One by one, the generals reported on the situation, and soon, the 3rd Western general came forward. About the poisonous totem master who was imprisoned by us in the secret agency, I wonder how we should deal with it. The voice of the Western Heavenly General was clear and clear. She was actually a young woman. She was also a talented student who had recently won a challenge. Poisonous woman, Garin touched his chin. He also remembered the secret agency poison master who clamored to poison him. When he was still in the headquarters, that guy was not ordinary arrogant, but now Kurosawa there was nothing Wei could do if he caught it, especially since the higher the level of Blackwater true skill training, the stronger the resistance to poison. After all, This is a route that imitates the blood circulation in the body of the nine-headed dragon. Although it has been modified and perfected to suit human use, it has completely lost its original effect. Although he is not nearly immune to poisons like Garen, he has also gained extremely strong resistance to poisons. For poison totem masters like Dupoze, it is simply a natural nightmare. Is there any news from the secret agency? Garen was still more concerned about the attitude of his old superior who had saved him in the past. The deputy director of the agency sent someone to ask about the reason for the arrest, and then no more people were sent. The Western Heavenly General replied respectfully. Then kill her. It's best to dig out the totem inheritance she mastered from her mouth before taking action. Is it okay? Garen nodded. I understand. The Western Heavenly General stepped back respectfully. The Northern Heavenly General stepped forward and continued to report. In terms of defense resources under my control, there has been a small-scale depletion of mineral deposits recently. Some mineral veins that should have been abundant have mysteriously dried up. I don't know any reason. I have investigated privately and found nothing. The veins are exhausted. Galen frowned. Who else has investigated? There is also Elder Konkin. The Northern Heavenly General replied respectfully. Garen looked at Konkin, who nodded slightly, indicating that he was certain. Leave it to the technical hall to accompany the investigation, Elder Konkin. This matter will trouble you. This is what it should be. The Nine Snakes system has been operating for some time, and it would be nice to earn merit points. Kong Chin smiled. Garen nodded. If the matter came to him, it was obvious that the people below had tried many times, but to no avail, so it was handed over to him. I will stay in the palace for a while this time. General affairs will be arranged and handled by Lala. Major matters can be discussed and decided by Elder Ephesus and Blizzard. Okay, now everyone goes back and returns to their respective duties. Master Kilian, please take me to see the Nine Snakes system. What a blessing. Kilian quickly stood up. Garen stood up and left first. Kilian followed with his two apprentices, and then the others left one after another. The Nine Snakes system is a new generation management system that was improved by Kilian combined with the original Palace Totem system. It established a new operating system, with a virtual unit called Merit as the core of everything. Anyone who contributes to Kurosawa Palace will be converted into a specific merit value and recorded. This merit value can be used to exchange for everything, whether it is totems, knowledge, resources, intelligence, equipment, technology, or even force employment. Human trafficking. Of course, these are only things that can be exchanged in theory. In fact, there are not many things that can be exchanged now. Most of them are the large amount of goods that Garen originally obtained from the palace treasury. These things were used as starting funds to attract disciples, students, and elders. Continuously contribute to the palace, obtain resources from the outside world, inherit knowledge, treasures, etc., and give those that are not suitable for your own use to the palace to exchange for success points, and then use this to exchange for things in the palace that you need. This is the optimal allocation of resources. Master Kilian asked the people in the Technology Palace to sort out all the complete totem inheritances and obtained a total of dozens of 3 high-end inheritance systems, which serve as one of the foundations of Kurosawa Palace. 13 totem inheritances, Garen thought thoughtfully, that's good. After the Blackwater True Skill reaches the 4th level and activates the Totem Master qualifications, students must choose their own suitable inheritance and continue to work hard. The system compiled in this way will not it's just knowledge about cultivating totems, as well as information on the location of various resources needed for evolution, as well as experience in cultivating detailed skills. As expected of Master Kilian, you have laid the solid foundation for the entire Kurosawa Palace. Kilian waved his hand quickly. The Palace Master has rewarded me. If the Palace Master hadn't been so generous and used all the inheritance from his private treasure house as start-up capital, the Nine Snakes system might not have been able to operate smoothly. I just did what I should do. Let's go and see the core of 9 snakes first. Garen nodded. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 511. After passing through many black stone palaces, Garen, surrounded by a group of people, quickly came to a remote side palace. The side hall is separated from the main hall by a small cemetery-like open space, with a few tombstones scattered sparsely on it. The ground is not paved with stone bricks, but only yellow-black soil. From time to time there is the sound of rustling insects burrowing in the soil. When Garen and others walked into the open space, the soil on the ground instantly stirred up, and countless black and yellow earthworm-like insects burst out of the soil. They had earthworm-like bodies, but with a ferocious head. The serrated mouthparts poked their heads out from the soil, as if they smelled some delicious food, and they crawled towards Garen and his group at extremely fast speeds. Close, Master Kilian quickly carved a spell symbol with one hand. The symbol was extremely complex and fleeting in the air. The earthworms and insects on the surrounding ground suddenly all stopped, their bodies froze, and they all burrowed back into the soil and disappeared. These are the special aphids I raised for the defense system. Don't look at how weak they are individually. Their greatest advantage is their numbers. When encountering the totem master's invasion, they will leap up and spread densely on the surface of the totem light, biting and absorbing the totem light, and only pure physical attacks can eliminate these little guys, Master Kilian explained as he walked. Garen nodded and saw the lingering fear in the eyes and faces of the others. It was estimated that these people had suffered from this kind of bug. A group of 5 or 6 people crossed the open space and walked into the side hall. The main hall was dark and empty. Hiss. Suddenly, countless black airflows gathered in the center of the hall. These airflows flew around and then quickly condensed to form a human figure with a blurred face. The human form was completely black and bowed slightly towards the crowd. 9 Snake System, at your service. The voice is the sweetest and gentle female voice. Garen stepped forward and looked around the blurry figure carefully. The human form is like the condensed form of countless mist. It has no physical form and does not move shyly as Garen looks at it. Just stood there quietly. Garen got closer to observe, stretched out his hand, and gently touched the humanoid's face. It was cold and devoid of any substance, just like reaching into a ball of moist cold air. This is just a physical appearance of the 9 Snakes system. It has no function except communication, Master Kilian explained behind him. He walked to a wall in the side hall and patted it gently. Are the preparations complete? Prepare to hand over core control. Everything is ready, 9 Snakes replied softly. After a while, Garen walked out of the side hall, crossed the open space, and walked towards his bedroom. After dinner, he didn't care about anything in the palace. He handed over the 4th and 5th levels of the Black Water True Skill to the 9 Snakes system as merit exchange items, but the merit required was relatively high. After dinner, he found Mohuang, who had already talked to the owner of Konkin Island, and simply arranged for Mohuang and others to be guest elders in the palace. Garen directly took Lala and walked out of the palace. The 6-horse carriage outside the palace has been prepared. The coachman and the escort are all decorated in a very luxurious and gorgeous way. It is like a gorgeous carriage made of black crystal and ruby. The cart is pulled by 6 unicorn-like black mutated horses. They are strong, can fly, and can dive when necessary. Garen and Lala got on the carriage, took off from the palace area, and flew straight towards the outside of the royal capital. To the southwest of the royal capital, and within the absolute protection area, a mountain peak there was won over by Garen and assigned to the Dar Sula school led by teacher Aining. He was going on this trip to see the situation of the Dar Sula school. The 6 one-horned horses in the carriage had black air wings on their backs. They flapped again and again, using huge force to pull the carriage and fly easily into the sky. There were more than a dozen Kurosawa guards escorting him around, also riding black unicorn horses. The team was so eye-catching in the sky above the royal capital that all the birds and mounts had to give way to the mountain wall. Garin was sitting in the carriage with his eyes closed, and suddenly a man's voice came from outside. "When did Lord Garin come back? Why didn't you inform everyone so that you could have a welcome banquet?" This voice is very familiar. It is the Grand Duke of Cody, the old guy at the same level as the Grand Duke of White Knock. When he besieged Shinaun, he was injured under the distortion pearl. He did not expect to recover so quickly. Opening the curtain, a golden carriage pulled by 3 bluebirds also floated in the air in front of the carriage. Duke Cody's chubby round face appeared at the entrance of the carriage, looking over here with a smile. It turns out to be Grand Duke Cody. "I wonder why you stopped my car," Galen asked calmly. "The king's capital is divided. Sir Garin is coming back this time. You must take good care of your disobedient subordinates, otherwise you may cause big trouble if you are not careful." Cody narrowed his eyes and smiled. "A big disaster? What kind of disaster can happen in the royal capital?" Garin still looked at the other party calmly. "Or is Duke Cody trying to warn me?" "How do you understand that that's what you mean?" "I'll put it here first." Cody lowered the curtain, and the carriage turned a corner and flew towards the Duke's mansion in the distance. Garin had a mocking look on his face, and suddenly he opened his mouth and blew out a breath of black air. The black air flew out, getting bigger and lighter, turning into a black wind in the blink of an eye, blowing towards Duke Cody's car. The 3-headed bluebird driving the car suddenly screamed and panicked. Cody in the car suddenly snorted, and the entire car suddenly glowed with a layer of faint golden light, blocking out the dark wind. "Master Galen Palace, what do you mean?" he yelled in the carriage. "It's nothing interesting. I just saw how cute your pet is and wanted to say hello." Galen chuckled, and the car passed by Cody, and soon disappeared into the sky in the distance. At this moment, the 3 bluebirds driven by Cody screamed and began to melt and dissolve at the same time. In just a moment, they melted into 3 groups of black liquid like candles, and then quickly evaporated, turning into countless black gases that rose up and disappeared. Only Cody maintained the golden light, holding the car tightly and suspended it in the sky. In the car, Cody's round face was full of gloom. "Type 5. Unexpected," he murmured, and the little girl in the red dress sat on the right side next to him, her white legs swinging back and forth under the seat. "You can't beat him," the little girl's childish voice sounded in the car. "We're in some trouble, why don't you go out and hide?" Cody looked at the little girl, his strange tone seemed to be communicating with a master of the same level. "It doesn't matter," the little girl shook her head, "just be careful." Cody nodded and said no more. "The people in Kurosawa Palace are getting more and more arrogant. Sure enough, there are just as many subordinates as there are palace masters. It seems that we have to join forces with the people over there." "Join forces? Do you want to open absolute asylum?" the little girl asked curiously from the side. Cody didn't answer, just looked gloomy. At night, on a slightly lower mountain peak near the royal capital, large swaths of bright lights were clearly visible in the attic fortresses that covered the peak, illuminating the entire peak into a white field. Inside a newly built white manor at the top. In the white hall, the milky white stone walls are engraved with different image patterns of 3 creatures, giant white bear, black cheetah, and fanged tiger. These 3 biological totems are the 3 core branch totems of the Dar Sula school. The patterns on the wall have many different branching directions. Some giant white bears have wings on their backs, some have a thick and long tentacle on their right arm, and some have 4 eyes. The same goes for black cheetahs and fanged tigers. Many different branching directions. The hall was brightly lit, and a piano band was playing slowly by the wall. The soothing music filled the entire hall softly, and even spread to the darkness outside along with the fluttering curtains. There is also a rectangular table placed on the right side of the hall, with fruit plates and other food on it for guests to enjoy. The guests attending the party are all gorgeously dressed, the men are well dressed, and the women's skirts are swaying. However, no matter what status the guests come to, the key to attending this banquet is either to see the master of Kurosawa Palace who has become famous in recent years, or to come here. Communicate with each other and build a large enough network. Garin was standing with several gray-haired old men at this time. He was playing with a delicate crystal cup in one hand while listening carefully to the old men's whispers. He was wearing a black and red suit, with a slender figure, blonde hair shawl, and skin as perfect as jade that the women present were secretly envious of. This world originally only had tuxedos, but Garin decisively cut off the tail of the tuxedo and modified it to become the suit style on Earth, and he suddenly felt more accustomed to it. He listened carefully to the teacher Aining's slow voice with a focused expression. The people around him were all the top elders of the Darsullah school, as well as the leaders of the elementary school who were good friends with Darsullah, as well as the leaders of civil forces and higher-level nobles from the royal capital who came over to attend the banquet. Except for a few people, the rest were all elderly, at least over 40 years old. Garin stood among them and looked a little eye-catching. The high-level officials on their side stood together, and most of the rest were elite students from the school and high-ranking nobles from the capital. The high-level big shots stand together, and the juniors and juniors stand in a circle, clearly distinguishing each other. Only occasionally when the big shots communicate, will they take the opportunity to call their children and nephews to introduce them to others. Although the young people formed their own small circles, they still secretly glanced at the superior circle with Garin as the core with envious eyes from time to time. 3 years have passed in the blink of an eye. Looking back on everything that has happened in the past few years, it still feels like a dream. Aining drank the fragrant wine, with a trace of complexity and sadness in his eyes. Teacher always likes to sigh. Now that the school is rebuilt and completely unified, isn't that your biggest wish? Garin said softly. People are always greedy. Maybe it's because their biggest wishes and goals have been completed that they feel empty in their hearts. Aining shook his head and laughed at himself. You are now at the height of your power, even if you are one of the top experts in the entire East continent. Being able to teach you back then was really my greatest pride. You're too complimentary. Garin smiled. I still have a lot of things I don't understand that I need to ask you for advice. Don't talk nonsense, you have already surpassed me. In the final analysis, I only played some role in the most basic stage. The real achievements are all achieved by you. Aining waved his hand. Presumably Lord Jialong Palace should have shown strong talent when he was in the basics, right? An old man from the school next to him asked with a smile. Speaking of which, perhaps only Brother Aining knows best what the former palace master was like. Several old men nearby echoed the question. Aining just randomly selected a few stories about Galen's deeds, and even now he still feels amazed. Garin showed an amazing talent in the art form at the beginning. Unfortunately, he was talented, but he did not want to take the art path, but specialized in totem evolution. As for using magic to fight, that method is completely unsuitable for Garin. This made Aining feel very sorry for a while. When he mentioned this, he chatted with several old men about trivial matters from that year with great interest. Garin listened quietly on the side, smiling slightly from time to time. After listening for a while, he excused himself to go to the bathroom and left alone to the night balcony outside the hall. He stood in front of the guardrail of the semicircular balcony and looked down from a distance. The lights of the towns and villages under the mountain were like clusters of stars in the night sky. The evening breeze blew on my face, cooling it with a faint fragrance. Garin sniffed gently, and the fragrance seemed to come from a very far away place. It was vague, and he didn't know what kind of plant was blooming. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 512. Holding your hand on the railing, The cold and smooth wooden guardrail has a delicate texture and soon softens under the temperature of your fingers. It was a rare moment to relax completely. Garin stood with his head raised and fell into silence slightly. I don't know how long it took. Lucerne, why did you come here? A clear young boy's voice came from the balcony on the first floor directly facing the second floor. I want to be alone for a while, another light and cold male voice sounded. The tone of the voice was not cold, but it gave people a sense of indifference and distance. Bells and the others are here, as well as Zilan and Koning. Why don't you go out and meet them? The clear young man asked in a low voice. There was no answer. Don't be so afraid of strangers. It's rare to see so many delicious things. It's hard to get a portion. If you hadn't brought us in, we probably wouldn't have encountered so many good things. Come on, give me some face. The clear boy seemed to be dragging his feet. Pull. Delicious food. You won't really open your stomach and try your best this time. The cold boy had some mood swings. Do you think I work so hard to get 4 invitations just to let you come in and eat? Don't be so stingy. We are all partners who share will and woe. The clear young man patted each other on the shoulder. Isn't the delicious food on the table more real than the big shots on the second floor who can't get up? Lucerne, your father is calling you to go up to the second floor. Suddenly, a clear voice came out from the bustling crowd in the hall on the first floor. It was a little girl with a clear voice. Then Lucerne on the first floor decisively covered his face. The hall on the first floor was quiet for a moment, and then bursts of laughter continued. The people who can be here are either nobles with good education and etiquette, or big businessmen and scholars with strong backgrounds. However, under the momentum of Garan Blackpool Palace, everyone behaves well. At such a superior noble banquet, Lucerne suddenly became famous. His father is also a high-ranking nobleman with strong power. Lucerne is a model among the noble children of the same generation in Kuwaitan. He is handsome, graceful, and outstanding in ability. Because his skin is as white as snow, he has the title of the noble son of snow. He is fleeing from the territory. On the way to the royal capital, I met some common people from the countryside. This incident has been spreading among the aristocratic circles of the royal capital. I didn't expect that he would really dare to bring these country people to such a high-level banquet, and his father would actually let him do whatever he wanted. Garin couldn't help but raise the corners of his mouth slightly as he listened to the movement in the hall below. These people reminded him involuntarily of his life when he was still in Vindman Manor. Although his life at that time was short, it was unprecedentedly peaceful, just like in the secret martial world. Why are you staying here alone? A gentle girl's voice sounded from behind. Garin did not answer, but still looked at the scenery below the mountain at night, enjoying the rare peace. The girl behind him walked to him and made the same gesture of holding onto the railing. Does a person as powerful as Lord Garin have troubles that he can't deal with? The girl stood on Garin's right, wearing a white dress that highlighted her slender waist, slender legs, light body fragrance, and red hair. Her gorgeous waist-length hair spread behind her back, with a white hairband hanging in the middle. This is a very beautiful and confident young girl. She is only 17 or 18 years old, and she is at her most brilliant. I am also a human being, and I also have normal worries and worries. Is this strange? Garin said calmly. He turned his head and glanced at the girl. Your heart is beating fast. The girl's face was slightly stiff and she tried to make a natural smile. I'm just a little excited to see my idol. She was confident that she had the purest appearance in the entire party. He had done some research and found that Garin's favorite type should be this type, pure, pleasant, and considerate. This is an opportunity to leap over the dragon's door. As long as she seizes this opportunity, her increasingly dilapidated family will instantly come back to life. She is an ambitious woman. As long as she can catch up with Palace Master Kurosawa, she is mentally prepared no matter what the cost. but the clear and indifferent look in Garen's eyes now made her vaguely doubt whether there was something wrong with her attractiveness. You are still young, and there are many paths in life. Don't put everything on yourself before you can see everything clearly. Garen looked at the girl in front of him, and for some reason suddenly thought of his sister Ying in the world of secret martial arts. Son, he suddenly discovered that apart from their different hair colors and personalities, the two people were surprisingly similar in appearance and temperament. I will go back. He made a decision in his heart. It had only been 3 years since he traveled to this world, and he still had a chance. Just find the secret of the black smoke pot. If the threat of the ghost gate can be solved, then the next step is to truly find the secret of the black smoke pot. Garen reached out and patted the girl's hair. Let's go back. A gentle force pushed the girl away slightly, leaving her speechless. The girl's face turned a little pale. She looked at Garen's back and finally turned around and returned to the hall. After a while, a familiar figure walked into the balcony. Wearing a black corseted evening dress, she was a beautiful and delicate woman with long legs. This woman's long legs were extremely eye-catching, and her proportions were much larger than those of ordinary girls. Her long brown hair was tied into a ponytail, giving her a somewhat heroic look. Master, the woman stood behind Garen and said softly. Sylvia, how's it going with Sophie? Is Jenny okay? Garen turned around and asked in a low voice. Since Sylvia was given to Garen by the eldest princess and the parasites were removed from her body, Garen continued to arrange her with her cousin Hathaway and resumed her original life, except that her position was changed to working in the palace area. Long's men. It can be regarded as the source for Garen to collect security information from his cousin. Everything is fine with Miss Sophie. Miss Jenny has entered Bifenglin Academy and is much more restrained now. Sylvia now lives next to Hathaway and is considered a neighbor. That's good. Over there, His Highness. His Highness has completely severed contact with his subordinates. Sylvia was originally sold to the princess as a slave to control. Now it was transferred to Garen, and she became Garen's slave girl. Fortunately, Garen Long didn't have any harsh requirements for her. They hadn't seen each other for a while. If it hadn't been for the sudden call from manager Lala, she would have almost forgotten her identity as a slave girl. Okay, you go down. Garen nodded in understanding. By the way, call Lala in. Sylvia bowed and retreated. Soon, Lala, wearing a white dress with silver edges, walked into the balcony. Have you found the person I asked you to find? Still not. Lala frowned and lowered her head. I'm sorry, sir, based on Sir Layla's behavior when she left, it didn't look like she was returning to the Black Sky Society. Garen pondered for a moment. Continue arranging manpower, and notify me immediately if you find it. Clear. Also, let the child come to my place. Child? Lala was slightly confused, then realized it, with a wry smile on her face. I understand the child has always been elusive, and it is not easy to find him in a short time. But now that the boss has spoken, the people below will naturally have to work harder. Garen came back this time and handed over the task of exchanging the evil god's origin with the evil god king with the shining water to the people under Kurosawa Palace. Lara assigned a special person to secretly go to the evil god's stronghold to contact them. There is no need for him to do this himself. The remaining time is to restudy the mysterious child and the little girl in red next to Cody. Thinking of that weird little girl with a snake-like tongue, Garen felt inexplicably uncomfortable. After Lala left, the hall behind her gradually became quiet. Time passed minute by minute, and I don't know how long it took. Garen suddenly frowned slightly and turned around slowly. At this time, a small black cat with red eyes appeared on the ground at the entrance and exit of the hall. It squatted on the ground, licking its lips from time to time, and stared at Garen curiously with a pair of big red eyes. How did you get in? Garen asked with a frown as he stared at the black cat with red eyes. Meow. The black cat meowed cutely. pretend to be a ghost, Garen's brows furrowed even deeper, and a black wind automatically blew onto the black cat. Amidst the sound of gurgling water, Hamao suddenly stiffened, and within a few seconds, his whole body began to melt rapidly, like a candle baked by high temperatures. In an instant, it turned into a puddle of black water on the ground. "It hurts," a clear little girl's voice came from the black water. Garen narrowed his eyes and saw that in the middle of the black water, a small red mouth suddenly formed, and the sound came from there. Starting from the small mouth, black water seemed to go back in time, step by step, returning from black water to flesh and blood and bones, and then reshaped into a naked white little girl. The little girl was naked, with long light red hair draped over her shoulders. She was only half the height of a galleon, and her slightly developed body looked extremely childish and attractive. She didn't mean to be shy at all, she just stared at Garen curiously with her bloody eyes. "Your presence makes me feel very uncomfortable." Garen grabbed his right hand. Bang! The little girl instantly exploded into countless pieces of flesh and blood, splattering all over the floor. Strangely, countless pieces of flesh reunited and formed the body of the little girl again. She walked towards Garen step by step. Garen's eyes were filled with the violent murderous intention of the nine-headed dragon, and a faint black mist appeared around him. He didn't know how the little girl came to him, but it was probably related to her encounter with Cody during the day. Now it seems that the other party wants to give him a warning, or come here to test his strength and attitude. The surrounding environment seems to have entered an illusion, but there is no sense of illusion at all. It is not so much an illusion as it is a kind of isolation, spatial isolation. "Why?" the little girl looked at him strangely. "Why don't you like my body? Aren't you all like this?" "Cody asked you to come," Galen asked in a low voice. "You do seem a little weird, but what do you mean by coming to the door? Have you seen the gate of heaven?" The little girl didn't answer the question. Instead, she asked an inexplicable question. "Gate to heaven? Mysterious journey." Author, Gunkai. Chapter 513. Woo. There seemed to be an inexplicable whistling sound in the air, like the whistle of a distant train or the roar of some kind of creature. Garen turned his head and suddenly looked at the night sky outside the balcony. I don't know when, huge silver iron rings appeared in the sky. These iron rings seemed to be hanging in the void, with the upper half piercing the space, hanging motionless in the night sky. Countless silver iron rings are spread across the sky, each one sparsely branched, stretching to the dark place where it is far away and cannot be seen clearly. Each iron ring is more than 10 meters in diameter and 1 meter thick, and is extremely clear. The moonlight shines down evenly, reflecting a faint silver light on these iron rings. "You mean the gate of heaven?" Garen turned around and looked at the girl with red eyes who appeared inexplicably. "That's the original source." The girl opened her red eyes wide. "Only the listener can see." Garen looked at the girl in front of him and suddenly felt a biting coldness on the back of his right hand. He raised his hand and saw an eye-catching red spot suddenly appeared on the back of his right hand, like a red mole. He remembered that this was the mark of the listener that the child had imprinted on him. At that time, Duke Cody asked him inexplicably if he could see the mark on his body, but he refused. "Then what is this?" He raised his hand and waved his mark towards the girl opposite. "That's a qualification acquired the day after tomorrow." The girl walked to Garen's side and also looked up at the night sky outside. "Only with this qualification can you truly see the world," the girl said in a daze. For a moment, neither of them spoke again, but quietly looked at the scene in the sky. Countless silver rings hung in the sky, as if it was just a strange picture. Garen seemed to be looking at the sky and scenery, but at the same time, he also used part of his mind to be wary of the little girl's movements. He just failed to kill the opponent several times in a row. This strange phenomenon made him feel slightly moved. If the opponent was the same as him, with 9 lives and other innate abilities, then it would be easy to say, but inexplicably, his five senses. Even with the mental induction, it was faintly discovered that the girl herself seemed to be in an unknown space. The external body seemed to be just a shadow of her outside. No matter how many times she was killed, it would not cause any harm to the body. Just like using light to destroy shadows, no matter how many words you say, it can't hurt people. Don't you want to go and have a look? The girl suddenly laughed. It's the first time you enter this world. Before, it was a world only us listeners could enter. What is your purpose? Garen glanced at her. Purpose? Of course, the girl seemed to remember her purpose of coming. Let me think about it. What is the purpose of my coming here? She rubbed her forehead and made a distressed look. Garen had already discovered something at this time. This guy seemed to be a little crazy, and there was something wrong with his brain. His words and deeds completely changed according to his mood, and her mood was completely unpredictable. Is the world of listeners the real world? He asked again. Yes. This is a very wonderful existence. I have children, Nadu, and a total of 10 other people, all born from here. The girl was reminded by Garen's words and diverted her attention. Thousands of years ago, you humans were still fighting for the imprint of the listener. What's ridiculous is that now few people know about the existence of this world. What's the benefit here? Garen stared at the little girl and continued to ask. Benefits? The girl clicked her lips. Everything found here can be taken out to the other side. Only the imprinted person can take it out. Well, there is also the gate of heaven. The existence of the gate of heaven can be found here. Isn't that ring on your hand also made here? She looked at the troll's grip on Garen's hand. Ring. Garen subconsciously touched the troll's grip. This ring was a gift left to him by the urban troll. How could it be a product of this place? Urban troll, I've seen it before. It's so tall. He wanders everywhere. Only creatures that keep him well fed and drunk will give him this ring as a gift. The girl actually knew everything. Suddenly she turned her head slightly, seems to be listening to something. How do you know? Garen was interrupted by her before he could finish his words. SHH. The girl raised her finger to her mouth and continued to listen. Coming soon. What? Garen frowned and stared at the other party. It's that big turtle. I'll take you to see some good things. The girl suddenly took Garen's hand and jumped lightly outside the balcony. Call. The two of them actually jumped out of the balcony and fell directly to the ground. Bang. It hit the ground hard, and the girl couldn't help but pull Garen and run away. Garen didn't know what the other party was planning, and he didn't resist. He didn't sense the girl's malice. It seemed that after the two of them communicated for such a while, the discomfort in each other became less and less intense. Pulled by the little girl to run, he left the manor and ran down the mountain. At high speed, Garen looked back at the manor. The lights were still bright there, and there were still countless people gathering inside, but they were all frozen in place, motionless, as if time had stopped at this moment. Someone was holding a wine glass and was about to take a sip when the wine tilted and almost flowed out from the corner of his mouth. Someone smiled and waved, their arms hanging in the air. Others echoed the music and dance partners twirled and tilted. The band player plucked the strings, and the strings bent into a slight arc, but showed no signs of returning to straightness. At the gate, a young boy tripped over the threshold and was about to fall. His body tilted in the air, but he couldn't fall down. Everything, all creatures seemed to have their bodies and minds immobilized, and only Garen and the girl could move. The two of them shuttled through the forest, and the Noctiluca moths frozen in mid-air were like bugs in amber, embedded and suspended in the air, motionless. When Galen passed by, he gently pulled and tore off the moth's wings, and the faint poisonous powder spread out, like a small puff of black dust. Did you see it? In this world, there are countless existences of time at different flow rates. Normally, the world you are in is only at a low to medium flow rate. But once time is at an extremely low speed or even stops, those things that move at extremely high speeds will expose them all, and now you can see their images clearly. The girl seemed to be talking to herself, or explaining to Garen. As the girl spoke, the surrounding images and scenery moved faster and faster, becoming increasingly blurry. At first, I could barely see that I was still in the absolute shelter zone, but later it completely turned into a blur and I couldn't see anything clearly. Garen could only be pulled by the girl and kept turning around and moving quickly. I don't know how long it took, but the girl suddenly stopped. "Let's see." The girl's voice came from my ears. All the surrounding scenery suddenly became clear. This place seems to be a gray-black wasteland, surrounded by gray hills and mountains, on which sparse black plants and moss can be seen growing. The ground was barren, with no green vegetation at all. Occasionally, there were a few tombstones stuck diagonally on the ground, and the writing on them had been completely blurred. Garen raised his head. There is no moon in the sky, only countless pale blue stars shed their light. The faint white clouds seemed to be there, but there was no sign of moving at all. "Look. This is the most real side of the world." The little girl let go of Garen's hand, with a bright smile on her face. Bang! There was a heavy crash in the distance. Bang! Another sound. Bang! The third sound. The sounds continued one after another, like the sound of footsteps, as if some heavy and huge creature was coming here step by step. Garen looked in that direction from a distance. Between the black hills, I saw a huge black turtle crawling towards the side. The turtle carries a small piece of grass on its back, with several tombstones stuck crookedly on it, forming a small arch-shaped cemetery. From a distance, this small cemetery is actually its back shell. The limbs of the turtle are 4 dry and forked tree roots, which are thick and gray-black. Every time they are lifted up and stepped down, they will make a dull impact on the ground. Garen stared at the turtle closely, his body's vigilance suddenly raised to its highest level. The whole turtle is more than 10 meters tall. As the distance gets closer and closer, the huge shape of the turtle becomes more and more clear. What surprised Garen the most was not this, but what was behind the turtle. There were densely packed and countless light blue humanoid figures following there. The bodies of these humanoid figures following behind were slightly fluorescent, like ghosts with translucent bodies. Among them were men, women, old and young. They were dressed in different styles. Their lower bodies did not have legs, but a ball of blue light floats. "What is that?" Garen murmured. Although he has experienced countless magical things in the totem world, the meaning of this huge creature and the human figures following it can't help but make Garen's heart. "Miniature. That's a big turtle," the girl replied from the side. "Usually it only exists for a moment. According to your time unit, it's about 190,000th of a second. But in this world we can see it clearly. It's active." "What are these behind it?" Garen watched as the giant turtle passed by him, with a large group of light blue humanoids behind him. "These," the girl followed Garen's gaze and immediately understood that he was asking about the long line of light blue humanoids. "It's the undead." "Undead? It's the soul after death," the little girl explained casually. "Aren't you afraid?" She seemed a little strange. She originally ran over to see Garen out of curiosity to see what was special about this young man who made her host extremely afraid. But the more contact she had now, the more she felt the difference in Galleons. "You just followed me here, weren't you afraid that I would hurt you?" the little girl finally couldn't help but ask. "You can't hurt me," Garen laughed. Everything in front of me seemed to slowly coincide with the ancient Yinduo myth spread in the world of secret martial arts. This world was once mentioned in ancient Yinduo mythology. In the legendary world where everything is still, the once great hero Hurla fought against the Destiny Water Snake here. Although he succeeded in killing the Destiny Water Snake, one of his arms remained here forever. Only creatures with the same mark can harm each other, and the great sage who gave the hero the mark could not take action himself because of this, so he had to design the hero Hela to take action. Even the great Mother Earth admits that she cannot interfere with everything here. But what makes Garen feel weird is that myth has obviously been circulated in the world of secret martial arts. He didn't expect that such a scene would also exist in the world of Totem. The two worlds seem to have some kind of inextricable continuity. The girl was still surprised by Garen's words, but at this time, the huge tombstone turtle passed by the two of them on the right, and countless blue light human figures gathered behind them, like a blue fluorescent river, meandering and unknown. How long? The humanoid undead in the river all had calm and dull faces, as if they had completely lost all self-awareness, and were just drifting behind the big turtle in a daze. Garen couldn't help but think of the underworld carriage. In the library in the ruins of the city, the underworld carriage he encountered seemed to have some strange connection with the big turtle in front of him. When Cody was little, I took him to see the big turtle and he was scared to death. Why didn't you react at all? The little girl looked confused. Don't you want to know where the big turtle will take these undead souls?